as you have spoken so much about Berger, who was his companion, nephew, I would request Berger to speak a few words.
Hello, everybody. Thank you all for being here. For me, it was a very personal relationship with Dara. My parents, we were in Jamshedpur. My dad was with Tata Steel. And we all moved. I moved to Bombay in May of 1982 for my college. And my parents followed in 1983. My dad passed away in 1986. And my grandfather, Dara's dad, who was with us, also passed away in 89. And my mother passed away in 2009. So right from 1982 till the day Dara passed away, we were together, which is a relationship for 39 years. Of course, I've known Dara all my life, but I lived with him for 39 years in the same house, day in and day out. After my dad passed away, he was like a second dad, father to me, and has always been. Dara's care, compassion, and, to get things done, to help everybody is, of course, well known to all of you. But for me, it was like a father-son relationship, which we shared all throughout our lives. Dara was, as already so many people have said, was always against any kind of wrongdoing and always wanted to correct it, even till the very end when he, couldn't attend meetings. He would tell me, come on, I have an email to write. I want to send a letter to the editor of Indian Express or Times of India. And I would sit on the computer and he would dictate letters, which I would send to various newspapers. He would dictate letters for various things for me to send to PCGT emails. And he was always against any kind of injustice, wrongdoing, and was ever ready to help anybody in this world. As I said, for me, it was more of a personal relationship. Dara cared for me like a dad, took care of all my needs, my education, and every single thing right from the day my dad passed away. So I have a lot to be grateful for. I knew that, it was inevitable one day, but I wish it could have been a little longer. But I am grateful for all the time that I spent with him. In conclusion, I just want to say one paragraph from a lovely poem which sums up Dara's life. It was written by an American poet called Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. It's called A Psalm of Life, but of course it's a long poem, but I just will recite one verse which is very appropriate for the kind of life Dara led. It says, lives of great men all remind us we can make our lives sublime and departing leave behind us footprints on the sands of time. I think that sums up Dara's life. Thank you.
Thank you, Berger. Thanks a lot. Rajmohan Gandhi, who is sadly unable to join us, has sent these lines. I quote, "A noble warrior was Dara Gandhi. From 1950s, he held the MRA torch aloft, along with a handful of other pioneers, including his cousin Keku and Keku's wife Khurshid, both of whom left us earlier. Dara's home in Bandra was where MRA workers, British and Indians, often stayed. Among the many whose involvement with MRA was enlisted by Dara in the 1950s were Mr. Raptakos, a businessman of Greek origin, a Sikh Mumbaikar Sardar B.S. Kalse, and Sri K.D. Tilak, a descendant of Lokmanya Tilak. Dara played a valuable role in the creation of Asia Plateau Panchkani. Love of music and loyalty to his conscience kept him going all his life. Out of love for his country, Dara gave his time and energy to PCGT. For me, it was a privilege to receive his quiet friendship over a lifetime. I share the loss, the sadness, and the admiration that many must feel. Raj Mohan. While we remember Keku and Khurshid, may I now request Keku and Khurshid's daughter Beroz Gandhi to say a few words.
Sorry, I was just unmuting myself. Thank you, Rekha. I can say on behalf of all my siblings that we had the good fortune of having a third parent who was Dara. He was my father's first cousin, 6 years Keku's junior, and his self-avowed secretary. He was born and spent his early years in Keki Manzil, the joint family home. My father, Keku, was so preoccupied in the early years with the burgeoning Indian art world and his involvement with MRA that I have hardly any memories of him. However, that role was amply filled by Dara. In the 50s, when I was a young child, my memories are filled with MRA groups visiting India. Names like Frank Bookman, Peter Howard, Rajmohan Gandhi were often spoken about, with the latter two visiting our home several times, organizing meetings and conferences, where Dara was the chief coordinator. I loved all the MRA songs we would learn with Dara conducting us as children, especially when I point my finger at my neighbor, there are three more pointing back at me. We used to have a whole array of songs that I remember with him because he was so musical. I remember vividly the conversations with Dara and my parents were always passionate discussions about the state of this newly independent nation. They saw MRA as a necessary engagement to raise moral fiber of the nation, where you worked on individual change as opposed to Nehruvian socialism, which was concerned with collective change in society. From those early days, Dara's concerns always prevailed on social and ethical issues, addressing wider injustice, especially from the government towards its citizens. Dara, Keku, and Khorshid attended all the MRA conferences, and when Asia Plateau was built, they traveled regularly to Panjgani together. Dara was besieged at this time with court cases over his inherited property. As he used to say, I'm property stricken, both with tenants and government demanding taxes, and simultaneously had problems with his landlord in the family home Girnara, fighting for a roof over their heads. Despite all he had to deal with, he had this sparkling personality which radiated joy, especially around children, despite never having any of his own. Us children that he really delighted in, giving an endless array of jokes and humor. Dara was an invaluable resource to me when I made my film Keki Manzil, as he was a repository of family memory and had this ability to switch into perfect delivery of memorable encounters stored within his razor-sharp mind. Amongst his many interests, he loved music and shared a love of Indian classical music with my mother, Khorshid, accompanying her to concerts, bringing another dimension to his otherwise very Western sensibility, being brought up as a Parsi. He also loved to travel, and most of our family holidays were with him in the later years. He was the most loyal companion to Keku and Khorshid. When Keku would ring him every day and say, Dara, when are you coming over? The three of them had lives so intertwined in interests and hobbies that they were dubbed the Three Musketeers. And my greatest consolation at his loss is that he can join them alongside his parents and sister Hilla. Thank you.
Thank you, Burrows. Thank you very much. I still remember for the movie, he had insisted that I come and watch with you all. So thank you for that. May I now request our friend from Delhi, Mr. R.D. Mathur, to speak about Dara.
Well, a lot has been said about Dara, and I have lived through all this as I've listened to all you have said. I go back to the 50s, late 50s, when it was my first encounter with Dara. I had been traveling abroad and had written to Dara, knowing that he is one of the anchors of our work in Bombay, that I wanted to be with him, and could he please accommodate me. I arrived at 1 a.m. at the airport, and I had told Dara that I'll take a taxi and come and join him. Lord behold, as I came out of the airport, there was Dara Gandhi standing. And he picked me up, took me to the car, drove me to his home, ready for me. And at 8 o'clock in the morning, we had breakfast together. He wanted to know everything that I had been doing. And after hearing all that I had to tell him at that time, he said, I have to go to the office, but I'd like to make an appointment for you on my way to the office. I said, with whom? He said, you will learn when you reach there. We arrived at that appointment. It was in the office of the Indian Express. It was with Frank Morris, who was the editor-in-chief, and he wanted me to tell Frank Morris everything that I had been doing and that I was engaged in. Frank Morris listened, and he asked his reporters to come and interview me. Next day, on the second page of the paper, there were headlines of my visit abroad. Dara was not only interested in, of course, helping all of us. We really depended on him because he, before Raj Mohan and some of us came onto the scene, was the anchor of our work along with Keku Gandhi and Khurshid Gandhi in Bombay. And they really looked after us. I used to drop him in the office, and he used to hand over his car to me and say, I have made these appointments for you today. Here is my car. Go and follow those appointments. And I used to go and meet those people. One incident I'd like to also mention is that George Fernandez was a trade union leader in Bombay at that time. He had created hell for Morarji Desai, who was a chief minister. Every day there were strikes. Every day there were buses stopped. And the whole town was in trouble with George Fernandez and all that he was doing. And Dara said, Arnie, let's go and meet George Fernandez. So we went. He was living in the slums with the workers. And he used to sleep on a table, and underneath the table, his followers used to be lying around. We arrived. we used to talk a lot with George. And George was bitter, angry trade union leader. Dara and me decided to gradually win him over and help him to make his inner voice as the voice that will be his guide rather than his anger and bitterness that was so deep in his heart. Slowly, George began to think, listen, and one morning he shared a thought with us. He said, I hate Morarji Desai. He is buncombe, and I want to do away with him. We said, George, he may be buncombe and all that, but you also are not easy with him. And you have made his life very difficult. We ended up by having a quiet moment together. And George had the thought, okay, I will see Morarji if you will make an appointment with him. So we did. We made the appointment, and George and some of us went to see Morarji Desai. And as we were talking with Morarji Desai, George apologized to him for all the trouble and difficulties that he had created for him. Morarji listened to all this, and at the end of it said, I'm glad you are seeing sense. We were so angry with Morarji for having said this because it cost George a hell of a lot to go and make this apology. Anyway, George came out and said, this guy is buncombe. And we parted ways. When the emergency came and George was put into the prison and was bitter and angry, he was brought into the court. And at that time, Morarji appeared in the court and stood for George and asked for his release, which had a very big impact on it. To cut the long story short, George not only came out of the prison, but when Morarji became the prime minister, he invited him to join his cabinet. And that was Dara and some of us just going into those slums and living and talking with these people that helped to open the doors for what I think was a very significant development in the history of this country. Oh, there is so much I could talk about Dara. He was an amazing person who never tried to make himself shine, but help others to shine and others to fulfill their role. And I would only like to say that there was no Kumaram in those days in Bombay. We had been introduced to a lot of friends, but we had no place to entertain them and look after them. So Dara and Keku went to J.R.D. Tata and said, we have this problem. Is there a solution? J.R.D. said, I will make a room in the Taj available for you. And you can entertain 6 people for any meal free of charge in that hotel. We were there for about a year, meeting people, talking to people, discussing with people. But Dara never tried to push himself forward. He was very keen team builder and a person who strengthened the roots of our work in this country. And so apart from everything else, I feel that we owe it to Dara and of course Keku and Khurshid alongside him for where we are today. When Panchgani was built, it was Dara who enabled us to get wagon loads of cement from ACC free of charge or at cost price, and introduced us to many, because of whom we have that magnificent center for the world in India. I think I better stop here because I get carried away. But much gratitude for Dara, for all he has done, for all he has been, and in heavens, he will be smiling today when we are remembering him. God bless him.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And it's amazing with the energy you speak. And after you, I have another gentleman who will be speaking with the same energy because he's a college classmate and friend and a co-trustee at PCGT. Julio, sir, over to you and your stories to share with Dara Gandhi.
Well, I think after hearing Mr. Mathur, there are many things that I personally did not know about Dara as to how he works behind the scenes and helps others to get things going and to shine in their own way. And he remains in the background. Well, I know that he was not a man to push himself forward, but that he had all the good intentions of getting our goals achieved. And well, I first met him in 1944. That is when both of us joined the Sydenham College. At that time, commerce was not a very, as today everybody is studying commerce. And all the policemen's children who just stay in the police lines behind my flat, they ask them, what are they doing? They're studying commerce. Whereas in those days, there was only two colleges, Sydenham and government and Podar. And now there are 100, I think, or even more. Every college teaches commerce. Dara was a year and a half older than me because he had studied, he had done the senior Cambridge, which meant 1.5 years more than we who used to do the matriculation examination. And I won't say that we were great friends in college. He was a more serious person, and I was more interested in sports. I was interested in becoming, getting on the college committee, and I stood for elections in the college. Whereas Dara used to be, I remember, with a boy called Keki Pantaki, who was the most brilliant student in our year. And he had come from St. Mary's School, also having done the senior Cambridge. There were two other girls from Cathedral, that is where Dara studied. And one was very well known to me because she belonged to my community. And in fact, her mother's village and my mother's village were the same. So we used to spend, and she was also from college, and the other was Roshan Aibara, who passed away recently. So, but I didn't see him mixing much with them. He was usually with Keki and others. And uh, I was with my friends who were a little of a different disposition, shall I say. And I then lost touch with him after we passed out. We both passed out in 1948. I joined the government law college and he went on to I don't know exactly what he did. But I next met him really in 1994 when I returned from Romania, where I had spent 4 years. And uh, Dara was with MRA, and it was Keku Gandhi who gave me a tinkle. Here, I was staying on this. I am in fact my flat, which was closed all that time, and I was away in Punjab and in Romania, was opened when I returned from Romania, and I got a phone call from Keku asking me to come to Kumaram to meet a lady called Sushobha Barve. And so I said, yes, I've read about her in Romania when we used to get our newspapers every week. And then, so I was introduced to her, and she was the one who worked quite assiduously during the 1992-1993 riots in Bombay. I was in Romania at that time, and we used to read every week, because the dark used to come from uh, in the closed. We used to have that delivery, which was not opened by the censors. In Romania, everything used to be opened, as you know, but our diplomatic bags used to be exempt from that. So we used to get that once a week, all the newspapers that we wanted to, that would take us right through the next week. So Dara and I met up again after so many years, and we got involved in the Mohalla committee movement. He was not so involved as Keku, as I don't think I met Dara very often, as might have come once with Keku. But Keku was very involved in that also, and used to attend our meetings. And Sushobha, of course, did all the legwork for setting up the Mohalla committee movement. And we got hold of the police commissioner, because without the police on board, our work would not have taken off. Getting the communities together. And because Sushobha had spent many days in the slums, staying in Muslim houses which were under attack. So she was a very intrepid lady who is now also involved in that work in J&K. And so that was the time I again made contact with Dara. And I won't say that we kept very much in touch till 2002, when the story that was told to you by Dr. Anand as to how PCGT was formed was highlighted. And Dr. Anand was, of course, the main person who thought about it, because he just mentioned that he was introduced to B.G. Deshmukh by Rusi Lala. And that I had suspected, because Rusi Lala was also with MRA, or at least he was I don't know whether he was a member, but certainly very, very involved in that work. And he was happy to see any other initiative that would bring people together. And this is where we again got together, Dara and myself. We were both the oldest in that group, and as people have just mentioned, that he was a very quiet, gentle sort. Never tried to make himself uh, the the center of any conversation. But he was a great conversationalist when you got involved with him. And he had very witty, and he had a sense of humor. You know, one of the things that he used to do for us was, because I used to introduce the subject, Dr. Anand would speak about it more elaborately in Hindi also. And finally, the third job was to get a vote of thanks for any event that we used to organize. And PCGT used to organize one big gathering of students once a year, where an important person would be called, like Dr. Abdul Kalam, or there were lots of people we invited, uh, Infosys chairman, and that kind of person. And this Dr. Anand used to give the main talk, main speech, but Dara would give the vote of thanks, and his vote of thanks became so interesting, a short vote of thanks, but so witty and so full of information that I think we used to look forward to that part of it. That it was so, and he had a very firm voice. You would not imagine he had a voice so firm from looking at him, because he was quite frail even in his, even when I met him in 2002, and he was, or even before that in 1994, he was quite frail. So he was somebody who nobody will ever quarrel with. I'm sure he never had any persons, he had never had any quarrel with anyone. But suddenly, if somebody made an observation among our trustees during our meeting, and he used to listen, as it was mentioned here by Suresh Advani, he was 4 hours, he could listen. 1 hour perhaps, or even less, he would talk. But I've seen him flaring up only when he found that injustice was being sort of condoned by one of our trustees. So that was the time when he would speak up and say that we cannot accept. I was and everybody around would be quite amazed, because Dara was normally very quiet, and suddenly he would say something which really made an effect on all of us. So it's sad that he has gone away, gone off. His niece, Beros, just said that they were sorry that, Barjor, I think, his nephew, who said that, his nephew said that it was very sad that he went away so soon. He wished that he was there for a little longer. Well, I think he was 93, and he was, in October, he would have been 94. I've been attending his birthday parties for the last 3 or 4 years, except the last one when COVID has struck. But otherwise, my wife and I used to be regular invitees, and it used to be at Keki Manzil, not at his house, but at Keku's, or that was their joint family house, of course. But he used to go there only for this purpose. The party used to be held there. And I always feel that, look, we are now at the end of our tether. There's not much time left. But why think about it? I never do. I don't think that we should bother about the end. That is inevitable. And everyone should not be prepared for it, but should expect it, and not quarrel, especially when you have lived a very fruitful life, or a more meaningful life, shall we say. I feel that, look, whatever time is left, you should be useful to society. And if you can do that, I think you have achieved something. And Dara has certainly done that. He was there with us right through. He never missed a meeting, except when he was really ill. And that was a little more apparent now, when we were also closed. I mean, because of COVID, we have not met for the last 2 years. But before that, he used to be always regular. And in the beginning, we had given him the charge of administration, accounts, and he used to attend to that very methodically, like he always attended on anything given to him. And uh, he was a really a good man, a good person, a good human being. And MRA obviously has chosen such people to be members or to be activists, and their way of looking at things, making individuals change, is something that I've seen in Dr. Anand, in Dr. Dara Gandhi, and now we have Rekha also, who has joined us from that organization. So we are very happy, we are very fortunate, the PCGT, to have these people associated with us, and we are going to miss him terribly. We are going to miss him really hugely. I think that now I should also end my little talk, and let me see if I've missed out on anything. Yeah, yeah, that's right. So I think I've spoken, and I'm happy to have, not happy that he to speak on such an occasion, it's a sad occasion, but that I was asked to speak is something that I value, and I thank Rekha for giving me the opportunity. She is the one who has organized this entire meeting with the help of other friends. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for listening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, you, Mr. Mathur and Dara Gandhi, who will believe? They always say age is just a number. And you three who are in the 90s have actually proved that to us. Before we end today's meeting, because Ribeiro sir spoke about the birthdays, I have a picture. You know, everybody who knows me, I love to click pictures. And today I dug out the picture of Dara Gandhi's birthday and his some moments at Panchkani. And so we will just show you some pictures just to bring back his memories. Sid, could we have it? There's no sound, Sid.
Sorry, just give me one moment.
Yeah, thanks. If you like, I would read out one more message. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Is there sound now?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, Sid. Siddharth Singh is doing all the back technical thing. Thanks once again, Siddharth. I read out the last message for this evening. It's from Nijja Chaudhary from Delhi. Dara represented chivalry and kindness and the best of the Parsi old world charm, which is disappearing. He was what I would call a solid citizen of India, committed to what he believed in and helpful to all around in his quiet way. His going is another reminder that the old world we knew is disappearing, and with it, something of ourselves too. Nietzsche. May I request everyone to maintain a minute of silence, and then we can speak again. Thank you. Thank you, friends. We have wonderful messages in the chat box also. Anna Saldana writes, I'm so fortunate to have been associated with Dara, a person of highest integrity, a man of his word, a caring and compassionate human being. I wish I had known him more closely as I joined PCGT 4 years ago. He was always punctual and he never missed a single meeting at PCGT. My deepest condolence to Birja and Beros and all his family. I pray that his beautiful memories will sustain you in your huge loss, and you will know that it is a huge loss to us as well. Anisha is Dara's grandniece also, great-grandniece, okay. Kiran Gandhi has also put, I see Dara as an institution builder par excellence. Therein, I believe, lies his real greatness, because the too worthy institution he was at the heart of founding will live on way beyond his lifetime. MRA changed my life and gave me a purpose to live for. I salute Dara for his gifts and offer my humble tribute to him. Dr. Ratna. Dr. Ratna, would you like to read out your own message? If you would want to read your own message, please go ahead and read.
Rekha, you can read it out.
Okay. So Dr. Ratna is the ex-trustee of PCGT, and Kiran Gandhi has been a part of PCGT thanks to the police training, and he's a trustee of MRA. And when PCGT did its first police training, the entire team of MRA was a part and ran the show. And Siddharth Singh's mom is also a Pammi Singh, who was a part of this police training at Marol. And Kiran next time can share with us all the stories of first training of Marol. He has a lot of stories and memories. I'll read out Dr. Ratna's message also. And I think Mr. Rajendra Gandhi has also put. So Dr. Ratna writes, having listened to all the speakers, I feel privileged to have known Dara Gandhi at the PCGT. He will be missed for his quiet patience, commitment to PILs to get social justice, and of course, for his sense of humor. My prayers and respectful homage to him. Rajendra Gandhi writes, to me, Dara stands for daring, devotion, duty, diligence. It'll be hard to find such honest, genuine, unselfish, caring individual. It was a privilege to know him. We all have been the beneficiaries of his care, love, and fellowship. Thank you, each one of you, for your beautiful messages. Fiona, do you want to say something? Fiona has joined us from UK.
Yes, well, I remember him very well in the 50s, early 60s. And we didn't have any center, as Adi said, in Bombay. So my brother and Bill Porter lived in a flat at the end of what was Warden Road then. And Janet Mace and I would lent a little cottage out on Juhu Beach by the Munchies, KM Munchie. And we used to drive in and out every day. And we would lunch at a restaurant above at the Eros Cinema, and it was air conditioned, which was also a rarity in those days. And Dara had arranged this, and the owner, who was a friend of his, gave us free lunch every day. And the four of us met with Dara and would share the thoughts that we'd had in our times of quiet. We'd read all the mail, we'd make our plans, we'd tell the things that we were doing. And this is how we lived for some time. And of course, at other times, I had lived very generous hospitality from Keku and Korshed. And in fact, Beros and I shared a room when she was a little girl for a while. And I knew Dara very well then as well, and his sister. And it is wonderful to see all of you remembering him, because he was very gracious. He never seemed to get impatient, although he had much put on his shoulders. He would get films through customs and all this kind of thing, which nobody else was able to spend the time doing. And he would expedite all these things, and done without any fuss or bother or I haven't got time or anything like that. And I really honored him. And to me, it was a great joy that just a few years ago, he and Korshed came and visited me here in my home. And I have their names in my guest book. And it was a real treat to see them. And now to be in touch with Beros again is wonderful. So thank you all for your memories, because there were things I didn't know, certainly, but he was a great man, a simple, quiet, humble man.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So if you all may permit, it's 5:41, and if you permit, we could end the meeting, or as you say. I leave it to you all. Thank you once again, everyone. TP, thank you.
Thank you.
Anisha, now we can see you.
Rekha, thank you for organizing this.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks
thank
a lot
you
for
very
being
much.
here. Thank you.
It's
Thank you.
good to see everybody.
Yeah. Thank
Wonderful.
you. There, I think the last message is by the Raos. I'll just read that. Wow. Dr. Rao has written, and Jayashri, though I've known Dara since the 60s, I did not have the privilege of working closely with him. I'm amazed to know so many things about him, which I did not know despite meeting him many times during my work with MRA. Speaks volumes for his quiet and modest personality. However, you couldn't miss his greatness. Of course, he did not hesitate to break his silence when something unfair needed to be challenged. I was witness to one such incident. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Rekha.
Yeah,
Thank you, everyone.
Bye. And bye, Barjor. Bye, Barjor.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Rekha.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you so much for this wonderful meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rekha and Siddharth and all for this lovely
Siddharth.
meeting.
Yes. Siddharth, thank you very much. I know we can't see you, but thank you. Thank you, RD.
Thank you,
Dr.
Rekha, for organizing all this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Barjar. See you soon. Yeah.
Rekha, you did a wonderful job. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
He always does.
By troubling you, no?
No.
Thanks. Bye, Lina. Thank you. So, Mr. Raja, you saw both the side of the family of Dara Gandhi today, the MRA and the PCGT. Sir, you're on
Yes,
mute.
I did, you know.
Yeah.
I got to know a lot.
Starting from the 40s.
I want
When
to
I've not even been born.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, Jyoti, you said something.
I wanted to tell you that Dara helped me collect a lot of donations for my organization, and I was quite very friendly with him because I used to go to Keku and Gandhi.
Yeah.
Keku Gandhi's house quite often, yeah. And I always wonder the way he was very nice to Khurshid when he used to sit and watch the TV with her when she was in her last stage of her life. So I met him quite often. Yeah. Wonderful man.
Yeah. Nice to see you also.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
So we'll end now, okay? Sid, we can end. Thank you.